Shabbat Shalom to everybody that's watching online with us. We appreciate you being part of LMC. Thank you so much for hanging out with us this morning. Hopefully you guys are having a good day. We're so sorry about yesterday. We don't know what happened as far as the technical stuff. It happens. But I know PM is trying to work that out. Plus just the whole week. The whole week's kind of been crazy. We weren't able to get matters out. We weren't able to get anything out. But on a good note, Sister Karen is feeling better. She's at home. I'm sure. Well, yeah, you can give a hand clap for that. She's feeling better. It was a tough week for the Sainz family. But Abba is good. Yah is good all the time. And all the time, Yah is good. So thank you for your prayers. We sincerely appreciate it. We'll have a normal week this week. We'll have manners each morning, our 5-minute devotions throughout the week. Make sure you guys got the app for that. And we will have Friday night with Brother Max on Hidden Manna. But the following week, as we celebrate unleavened bread, we won't. We're going to put all that stuff aside just for the week. Don't forget, Sunday would be the High Sabbath. That would be the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So make sure you keep that in mind as you're doing all your stuff, and start to get all the leaven out of your house. Look for it now, because I'm telling you, no matter how many times I look around the house and try to get the yeast and everything else out, I always find something. Sooner or later, there's something behind a box or something. Why do we do that? Why do that? A, because that's the instruction, right? It says to go ahead and do that. But more importantly, because in doing that, we learn bigger things. We learn the bigger story. We learn by doing, not just by hearing. Maybe that's not the right way to say it. Not just intellectual knowledge. We learn by experiential knowledge, which is why we do Passover, which is why we do the feast. We do them. We do our best to do them to the best of our ability, because in doing them, we learn things that we would not have learned otherwise. So we'll do that. And this upcoming Passover is going to be our first burnt offering as well. Because what we're going to do this year is, because we don't keep the leftover lamb to the next day. That's part of the instruction. We are going to be setting up a pit outside, and after the Passover, stay with us for a while, and we're going to burn the meat together. I did this a couple of, like 2 years ago at my house. That's what we normally do. We take it, we bring it to the house, and we burn it by the next morning. And it was so neat doing it the first year, because it really sort of, even though it's my barbecue and it's on the barbecue, it connects you in a mental way to all our spiritual ancestors. And I'm not saying that that's an offering or anything like that. I'm just saying it was just trying to be as obedient as we can. It was really quite an experience. We'll do it again. And I cannot believe how hot that lamb burns. It melted my barbecue. The flames were huge. Well, it's all fat, and the meat and the fat and everything's burning on it. The flames were jumping 3-4 feet high. And as I'm doing it, I was just thinking, could you imagine what the altar must have looked like with not just a lamb on it, multiple lambs, and a bull burning? Could you imagine what that must have looked like? All the fat and the meat just melting away, flames shooting way up into the sky. And the best thing of all is the whole yard when I did it, and I'm sure all of Jerusalem smelled like a barbecue. And barbecue smells good, right? So anyway, so I'm looking forward to that. It'll be our first year doing that corporately together. We thought that'd be kind of interesting to do. So we're looking forward to it and seeing everybody on there. This morning, our opening verse is Exodus chapter 12, verses 5 through 8, and then verse 13. All right, so of course you guys know we use the Scriptures version. We use all sorts of different versions here, but for the notes, and the notes are available. If you don't have them, they're in paper form if you want them. If you want, you can also use your phones or your iPads and download it online. So Exodus chapter 12, verses 5 through 8, they say the following. Let the lamb be a perfect one, a year-old male. Take it from the sheep or from the goats, and you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same new moon. Then all the assembly of the congregation of Israel shall slay it between the evenings. And they shall take some of the blood and put it on the two doorposts and on the lintel of the house where they eat. And they shall eat the flesh on that night, roasted in fire, with unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Verse 13. And the blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I shall pass over you. And let the plague not come on you to destroy you when I strike the land of Mitzrayim, Egypt. And this day shall become to you a remembrance, and you shall celebrate it as a festival to Yah throughout your generations. Celebrate it as a festival, an everlasting law. And for a few moments this morning, the title and the topic of the message. Did that come up? PM, I don't know why. Did that come up? You guys see that? That's that. Anyway, it's called Passover, a threshold covenant. There we go. Passover, a threshold covenant. You guys know the prayer here? If you know it at home, please pray with me. Abba, give us eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart that is willing to obey. In the Master's name, amen. All right, so a Passover, a threshold covenant. Now, I know I told you we were going to go back to the parable of the fig tree, and we will. But between last week being our mikvah and then Passover is literally just around the corner, I really wanted to start introducing some Passover messages. There's a gazillion things we could talk about, but leading up to our actual Passover. So right after that, right after the feast, we'll get back and we'll finish up the parable of the fig tree. And I guess it's really kind of all connected anyway. But so for today, we're going to talk about the threshold covenant. Passover as being a threshold covenant. Now, I want you to notice something. I want to go back to the original slide. This is number 1 on your notes there. I just highlighted a couple of things down on the bottom. You know, every time there's a highlight, it's just something I want to emphasize to you, something I want you to look at and pay close attention to. Anything in yellow is sort of my commentary. I call it the PBD version. It's not a version, it's just me sort of giving you my own insights, my own thoughts, to hopefully make it a little bit more clear as to how I'm thinking when I see this. This is obviously the story of the Passover. This is the instruction about the Passover, what to do for the Passover, what lamb to take, how to do it, how to take the blood, on what day you do it. You bring the lamb in on the 10th, and of course the 14th is the day of the Passover. And now we should know the story by now. I know our children are learning it each year. We should know the story by now. This is a story that should be read year after year after year after year. It's supposed to be read year after year after year because it is vitally important. And in the story, it tells us, or in the version here, verse 14, Father or Yah instructs Moses to tell them, this day shall become a remembrance for you. This was something the house of Israel was supposed to remember. Year after year after year, generation after generation after generation, and all the way up till today, just speaking solely from our Jewish brethren, from Judah, they do this as they celebrate Passover. The whole Seder is about rereading the story, going through the story, singing, it would have been enough, Deyanu, it would have been enough if you had just done this, but Yah did even more than that. They redo the entire story in the Seder, in the order, in the service. They retell the whole story of the Exodus, which is wonderful and amazing. That's the way it was supposed to be. Somehow, for the believers that have come in Messiah, a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us have lost the connection between Messiah and the Passover. And so many of our brethren focus on a day that's not really a feast day, focusing on resurrection, but it is Passover that is supposed to be the day of remembrance. And I'm not taking anything away from resurrection, obviously, a very cool day. We'll talk about that later. But the Passover was supposed to be a day of remembrance. It was supposed to be something Yah's people would think about over and over from generation to generation, and also be something that they teach their children about. So we know who our Yah is. He is the God, he is the Yah that got our spiritual ancestors out of Egypt. That's actually the first commandment. I am Yah, the one who got you out of Egypt. You shall have no other gods, no other Els before me. That's the very first commandment, to always remember this story. He is the God that got our spiritual ancestors out of slavery, out of bondage, out of Egypt. And we are told to celebrate it as a festival. This is an everlasting law. Now, I know there's no temple. There's no way for us to do all the things that were done in the past. But I think we should still be doing this because, if for nothing else, for remembrance. Certainly for obedience, but for remembrance, because there are some amazing lessons to learn in actually taking part of the Passover. So, a threshold covenant. Now, if you remember last week, during the mikvah, we talked about the everlasting covenant, but the blood covenant. The everlasting covenant established with Abraham, or Abram at the time. His name later gets changed to Abraham. Genesis chapter 17 and verse 7, it says, "And I will establish my covenant between me and you and your seed after you in their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be Elohim to you and to your seed after you. And I shall give to you and your seed after you the land of your sojournings, all the land of Canaan as an everlasting possession, and I shall be their Elohim." And we talked about, as part of the Passover, that you're not just, yes, we accept Messiah, we're acknowledging the death and the resurrection, but we're also becoming part of this covenant. We are becoming part of the eternal covenant. We are becoming part of the story that starts with Abraham. Because if we are Abraham's children, which we are, then we are also heirs to the promise of Abraham. And what is the inheritance? The inheritance is the land. That's the ultimate inheritance. Now, I know we focus a lot on, we hear all the time, going to heaven and being in heaven forever and ever. That New Jerusalem, yes, but that's not even going to be a heaven thing. That's going to be a here thing. But even before that comes, the inheritance is the land, the kingdom, as is promised to Abraham. And we talked about the blood covenant that Yah makes with Abraham, that really Mashiach makes, because if he's Elohim, this is the one speaking with Abraham way before he is Mashiach, way before we see him in John chapter 8 say, "Before Abraham was, I am." And the response of the Pharisees is they freak out because, who are you, God? And of course, they just didn't get it. But that being aside, the 4 pictures up there just tell the basic story of a blood covenant. Because we're going to talk about a threshold covenant, but just remember, a blood covenant is the everlasting covenant. This is the inheritance. This is the promise given to Abraham and to his seed, and to the one particular seed, of course, that is Messiah. But chapter 12 starts off with Abraham being called. Come out of Ur of the Chaldees, go to a land that I will show you. I will bless those who bless you, curse those who curse you. I will make a nation out of you, and in your seed all the nations of the earth will be blessed. That's the beginning of the covenant. Those are the words. That's the oath given to Abraham of a covenant to come. Then, as every covenant, every blood covenant is, there is a meal time. And of course, in the next couple of chapters, he comes back from saving Lot, and he meets Melchizedek. And in meeting Melchizedek, there is the bread and the wine with the priest of the Most High. He eats a covenant meal with Melchizedek right there. Second part of a covenant. Third part of a covenant, there is a cutting. There must be a shedding of blood. You can see on the picture there, this is Genesis chapter 15. The animals are taken, they're cut in half, the blood flows in between them. Abraham falls off into sleep, but Yah, Mashiach, as a burning pot, as a burning pot and smoke, walks through the blood, establishing the eternal covenant with Abraham. Then the last part of a covenant is, with every covenant, there is a test. In fact, there's probably lots of tests. It's not just one test. There's lots of tests, but we're only focusing on one here. Abraham is told to take your son, your only son, and offer him on Mount Moriah. And of course, he is willing to do that. You know the story. The ram is caught in the thicket and it is used instead. The last part of the covenant is that every covenant has blessings and cursings. The rules, the instruction, what you should do in the covenant and what you shouldn't do in the covenant. These are just the basic outline of a covenant. This is the blood covenant, the eternal covenant we talked about last week. So it's already been established as far as the storyline goes. The eternal covenant has been established with Abraham. It will be fulfilled when Mashiach comes and becomes the very offering for the eternal covenant, the renewal of this eternal covenant. But there's another piece that has to happen with Abraham's seed. And that is the story we're reading of right now. Genesis chapter 12, the Passover, a threshold covenant. So just to keep the storyline going, takes about 430 years from the time of Abraham, of Yah walking through the blood with Abraham, making the covenant there, promising him the land. 430 years later, fast forward, obviously we're going fast forward through Esau and Jacob and all those other stories, all the way to the time of Egypt. Joseph goes down to Egypt. His brothers go down to Egypt. All of that happens. Joseph is made king in Egypt. Wonderful, amazing story. Just don't have enough time to go through the whole story because it's a huge story. But eventually, it winds up in the book of Exodus. This is number 4 on your notes, chapter 1 and verse 8. The children of Israel had been in Egypt for a couple hundred years. I know it says 430, but it's 430 years from about the time that the covenant is made with Abraham. So here it is, verse 8, it says, the new sign, then a new sovereign, a new king, a new Pharaoh. Not the same Pharaoh that was there that exalted Joseph, a different Pharaoh. Now a new king arose over Mitzrayim, Egypt, who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, see, the people of the children of Israel are more and stronger than we. Come, let us act wisely towards them, lest they increase. And it shall be, when fighting befalls us, they shall join our enemies and fight against us, and shall go up out of the land. So they set slave masters over them to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh supply cities, Pithom and Ramesses. So just real basic story. They went from being brothers and family of the second in command of Egypt to becoming slaves, servants. They were slaves. They were servants to Egypt. Now they gave themselves over as servants in the beginning of the story. They call Pharaoh. They say, we are your servants, and they get the land for them to go ahead and have all their flocks in. They're still servants of Pharaoh. Except this Pharaoh's not a good guy. And this Pharaoh really puts them in, not just as servants, but puts them into slavery. Obviously, you can see the picture there, just a kind of a neat picture to sort of fill your mind with something. They're slaves there building the different cities. The story goes on that finally Yah brings a redeemer. And of course, that is Moses. And I'm not doing the whole story of Moses, but by Exodus chapter 3, Moses at the burning bush hears this information. It says, and Yah said, I have indeed seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their slave drivers. For I know their sorrows, and I have come down to deliver them from the land of the Egyptians, and to bring them up from that land to a good and spacious land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites. And now see, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me. And I have also seen the oppression which with the Egyptians oppressed them. And now come, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. So at some point, they're crying out. Obviously, they're in slavery. They're not happy about it. They're crying out to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They are the children of the promise given to Abraham. The promise is the land. Except they're not in the land. They're in slavery. They are in bondage. And because of, this is real important, because of the promise given to Abraham, Yah is about to do something. This is important. So what's the initial promise that starts everything for all of us? The promise given to Abraham, the eternal covenant, that his people will one day bless all the world and we will have the land. That's the thing that Yah remembers. He remembers the covenant with Abraham that gets passed down to Isaac, and from Isaac eventually to Jacob. So he remembers it, and he sends Moses back to go and get the people out. Now, I'm not going to get through the story of all the plagues. We can do that another time. We've done that before. But all the different plagues occur in the story. The flies and the lice and the frogs and the blood, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We'll talk about that at Passover. But eventually the last plague comes, which brings us to the story of Passover. The last plague comes where Yah is about to remove his people from Egypt. Now, they are servants in Egypt. They are slaves in Egypt. If you read real close and you follow the storyline, Yah is asking them to, is telling Moses to go to Pharaoh and allow the people to leave so that they may serve Elohim. But they are already servants to Pharaoh. If they're legally servants to Pharaoh, which they made themselves, how can Yah legally get them out of Pharaoh's land into the inheritance that he has for them, or to begin the process of the inheritance? Legally do it, because these are slaves that belong to someone, and they have to be removed from that someone and brought to serve another master. Of course, that master would be Yah himself. How does that happen? Well, the short answer is through a threshold covenant. Through a threshold covenant. Now, what is a threshold covenant? Lots of neat books you can get out there. There's a whole bunch of them online. I think one of them I saw was a Thumbrill. Has a really neat book on the threshold covenant. There's a lot to it. But basically this is number 6 on your notes. A threshold covenant is a covenant whereby an individual, either an individual or a married couple or a deity, a god, was invited into a household to become part of that family, of that household, to be one with them. So just as a for instance, there was another person you wanted to make a covenant with. The arch of your home, the door of your home, served as an ancient altar. Before we've got the altar at the temple and the tabernacle, before any of that stuff, the actual doorway, the entrance, the gate, also served as a primitive altar. When you wanted to make covenant with someone, when you wanted to bring them into your family, for them to be one, i.e. like a marriage, or just something arranged with an individual, you wanted to bring them into your family, you would, at the doorway of your house, the individual would come, a lamb or a goat would be bled there in a basin. The basin, the word for basin, I have it down there, it's number 5592. The word for basin is the same word for threshold. It means the same thing. So at the threshold, before the door, a lamb or a goat is slain. That blood is put on that doorpost as a token so people can see a covenant has been made here. And that individual steps in over the arch, over the entranceway, over the threshold. And once he does, he is accepted, whatever the terms of the covenant are, he's being accepted into that family. They are now covenanted together. And what they do is the animal that was slain at the door, they wind up cooking it and it becomes a covenant meal. This was a process way before any of the story of Exodus occurs. This was a process culturally before that. So the sacrifice of the lamb or the goat at the primitive altar, the entrance of the home, which is called the threshold. Again, it's number 5592. You can look it up in your Strongs. The blood was a token. So the blood that was placed on the lentils, on the door, was a token so that everybody else that came by knew that that house, that individual, was now part of that family. He had been invited in over the threshold. They were now one. They were together. They were all family now. On the outside of the door, they weren't family. On the inside of the door, now they're family. They are covenanted together. The guest enters the home by stepping over the threshold to join the family in a covenant meal made from the animal that was just slain. This tradition has survived in many, many different cultures, including our own culture today. In the picture you can see there, and we're probably all familiar with this, you've got the groom carrying the bride over what? The threshold. And the idea is she doesn't walk on the threshold, he walks over and he brings her in. And when they walk into that home, they have now covenanted themselves to be one. And it's not just them, it's the family that they are now covenanted to. They're all part of that family. I couldn't find it. I wanted to find it. I had a picture of Karen on our honeymoon. She carried me over the threshold. I know that sounds crazy. It was a fake picture. We fixed it, but it looks so cool. It's like Karen's actually carrying me over the threshold. And that's, if you guys know Karen, she would definitely be into that. So that tradition still is with us in obviously a much, much watered down form today, but it's still part of our cultural reality. We know that going over that threshold is a difference. There's from one side to the other, there is a difference. Now you're family. We share the same name. We eat a meal. You are family. Of course, you can see the picture there. So this idea of a threshold covenant has survived a long, 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 long time. Maybe not the exact same thing, but it's still there in some form. A threshold was a gate or a doorway or a portal was another way of saying it. A basin was another way of saying it. And so in the story of the Exodus, it's their front door. That's the gate or the threshold into the home. As time goes on, this idea of a threshold covenant goes beyond just the home and that archway of being an altar, to eventually a temple, which is a house that has a door on it. And in order to enter into that door, you bring blood, you bring offering. And you come on in, you make your offering, and then you sup, you eat. It really is the same story on a much bigger scale. And on a much bigger scale than that, when you entered into a city, that was also a gate. And you came in, and you could probably find, a dozen or so references of what goes on at the gate. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot sat at the gate. The gate was the place when you first came in, you dealt with all your grievances, you looked for justice, you found out what the place was about. If you were to be allowed to come in to the town and be part of everybody that's there and live by whatever the rules are that's there. So this idea of the gateway, that door, from one end to the other it's in every culture. It's in all of the Middle Eastern cultures, and obviously it's here in the story that we're looking at now. We see this translated later on into the instructions given in Leviticus. Now I'm only going to give you one little reference. You guys can look up other references yourself. But here's Leviticus chapter 17 and verse 6. It says, "And the priest shall sprinkle the blood of the slaughter place of Yah at the door of the tent of appointment, and shall burn the fat for a sweet fragrance to Yah. And let them no longer slaughter their slaughterings to demons after whom they hoard." So this practice was going on before any of this instruction came. But very often what you would do is not just for a person, not just for a marriage, but it was also a way of inviting a deity into your house. So if you slaughtered at your gate, at your door to a particular deity, well then that deity was invited into your home. And so Yah's instructing them, no more of that stuff. No more sacrifice, no more of the demon stuff. Now you're going to do it at the tent, meaning the tabernacle, at the gate of the tabernacle. You bring your offering, it gets slain, it gets bled there, and then you make your way into the actual altar. The meat is divvied up. Some of it goes to the priest, sometimes some of it goes to Yah as a burnt offering, sometimes some of it goes to you, and you sup with him. This is the same story, just on a bigger scale. It's not just the door of your house, now it's the door of the tent of appointment. And of course it says, and let them no longer slaughter their slaughterings to demons after whom they hoard. This is a law forever for them throughout their generations. Third time we've heard this. And say to them, any man of the house of Israel or of the strangers who sojourn among them, who offers an ascending offering of slaughtering and does not bring it to the door of the tent of appointment to do it to Yah, that man shall be cut off from among his people. So it changed a little bit. What you would do at your door was to invite a person in to be your family, or invite a married couple in to be your family, or invite a deity in to be your family. As the story evolves, eventually by the time the tabernacle is established, Yah is inviting us into his house, so that we go to his house and there would be blood, and there would be an offering, and there would be a meal. So initially, to start this off, after the covenant made with Abraham, this covenant, which is really, if you think about it, along the lines of marriage, is to pick the bride, is to allow the bride to be seen, to be known, to know that they are together as one family. And eventually, they would approach Father through the tabernacle. I'll explain that more in a second. So a couple of different things that are needed or that are listed in a threshold covenant. You need a lamb or a goat. You need a basin. Remember, the word basin is also the same word as threshold. Wooden doorpost, the lintels, the two sides, and the top. You need blood, and you need hyssop, a branch, a plant. This is Exodus chapter 12. Listen to the instructions given to Moses. And Moses called for all the elders of Israel and said to them, "Go out and take lambs for yourselves according to your clans, and slay the Pesach. And you shall take a bunch of hyssop and dip it into the blood that is in the basin, and strike the lintel and the two doorposts with the blood that is in the basin. And you, none of you, shall go out of the door of his house until morning. And Yah shall pass on to smite the Mizraites, the Egyptians, and shall see the blood on the lintel and on the two doorposts. And Yah shall pass over the door and not allow the destroyer to come into your houses to smite you. And you shall guard his word as a law for you and your sons." Again, how long? Forever. So you know the story. They do this. They put the blood on the doorpost. They roast the meat. Everybody goes in the house and they're eating. If this is a threshold covenant, when the death angel, when the destroyer comes and he sees the blood on the doorpost, what is that an indication of if this is a threshold covenant? Yah is being invited into the home, like you would an individual, a married couple, or any other deity. Yah is invited into this place. And it tells us as the death angel moves throughout Egypt, Goshen, and all the other lands of all the other places in Egypt, when he sees the blood, the destroyer doesn't have to go in there to destroy anybody because Yah is invited in already. He's already passed over the threshold. He's already won with them. He's already picked a bride, because this is what it's going to wind up to at Mount Sinai, is the picking of a bride. Israel is the bride. The whole house of Israel, with all the sojourners and all the foreigners, become the house of Israel. So if the death angel is going, so death is not visited upon the firstborn of that household, but if he goes through the rest of Egypt and there is no blood on the doorpost, what does that say to Yah? He is not invited here. This is not a place where he's welcome. This is not a place of family. So what happens? The firstborn dies. And of course, all the wailing the next day in Egypt because of what happened. So with the blood, it's a threshold invitation for the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to come and sup with us, be part of our family. We are part of your family. You are part of our family. Don't have it, it's a rejection. I don't want you. I don't believe it. I don't trust it. I didn't do it. Everybody with me so far? This is all just sort of introduction to get you to something else. All right. This concept, this idea, while it starts here at the Passover, and obviously we've seen it in Leviticus 17 in the temple, this also has another manifestation later on in the instruction given to Moses, given to the children of Israel. in Deuteronomy chapter 6, we should all know this chapter. It's the chapter of the Shema, Hear, O Israel. Listen to this. Hear, O Israel, Yah your Elohim, Yah is one, Echad, and you shall love Yah your Elohim with all your heart, with all your being, with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. This is almost the same instruction in chapter 13 and 12 and 13 of the Exodus that he says about remembering the Passover. Tell it to your children. When they ask, why do we do this? Tell them this is why we do it. He's instructing us here to take his word and put it where? In the heart. Invited into what? Now, we're jumping forward in our understanding because we're at, thousands of years later. What are you? The temple of the living Yah, right? In a more generic way, what are you living in? A house. And what are you supposed to invite into this house? Same as the whole Passover story. The blood is an invitation for the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to come in and sup with you. He's telling them now his word needs to enter into the door of your heart. This is the whole Shema. Go back to it. And you shall impress them upon your children, speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. It's what you do, it's what you think. And you shall write them on the doorpost of your house and your gates. Why? It's a remembrance of the threshold covenant. So everybody that walks by you, and if you walk into our assembly here, you'll see, and you can see on the picture there, how was this manifested? How was this commandment done in ancient Israel all the way up to today? A mezuzah. They took a mezuzah and put it at the doorpost of their home. With inserted in it is the Shema, the very words of Yah, either at their fence post on the outside or their door. And when people walked into the house and they saw that, they knew who was in this house. The Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They knew, and if they're part of the family, they knew that you're part of the family. We're part of the family. And some of the tradition becomes they walk into the house, you always touch it. And I do. Every time I walk in, I do. It's just what I do, because I look at that. We are under a threshold covenant. I got one at my house. I'm sure Pastor Matt's got one, and many of you probably have one too. I'm not saying that the tradition is the be-all and end-all. It's the symbolism of it. And the instruction here is that, yes, you are supposed to have or remember the threshold covenant. We had, a couple of years ago, again, another time, Sister Karen had all sorts of things going on. We had a nurse come by into the house. Sometimes you have the nurses come by, they'll take the blood pressure, do blood, and all the rest of that, rather than going out to a place. So she came in, and she stopped at our door, and as she was about to walk in, she noticed the mezuzah, and all of a sudden, a smile came on her face. Because in her, I could see it on her face. Listen, you're going to people's houses all day long. You've got no idea what to expect when you walk into somebody's house, right? People do dumb things, crazy things sometimes. And she's a woman all by herself. She walked in, and the first thing she looked at was the mezuzah, and I saw a smile come on her face, and I could see the relaxation come on her shoulders. Her shoulders went down a little bit. She felt more comfortable because she saw the mezuzah, and she realized in her thinking, these are my people. I'm okay here. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and she walked in. Of course, we got the Ten Commandments there. We got all sorts of pictures. So she felt more at ease. And of course, when we started telling her we're not Jewish, that's a whole different story. But another day, another time. But so that's why that signet, that blood on the outside, was so important. Not just for us to see, but for Yah to see, to know that He's welcome in here as well, or welcome in the home in the first Passover. All right, everybody with me? And you shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. Verse 12, be on guard, lest you forget Yah, who brought you out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage or the house of slavery. Because don't forget, they were in slavery. So this redemption is at the life of a lamb. So how does Yah legally get his bride over the threshold into his home, or him over the threshold into their home? Through the threshold covenant. And now, if they've done that, they are declaring, we serve this Yah, not Pharaoh. And everybody who doesn't have it declares, we serve Pharaoh or some other deity, whatever deity it had happened to be. This was a declaration. This gets them the next day out of Egypt. And then the whole story of the Exodus story and all the rest of that stuff goes on from there. This is really, really important, because the last instruction in verse 12 is don't forget this. Don't forget the Passover. Don't forget, I am the Yah who got you out of Egypt. So again, just fast forward through history, while definitely our Jewish brethren have remembered this, they can't see, at least not yet, what the ultimate manifestation of the threshold covenant is, because we've seen multiple manifestations. There's the blood on the doorpost, then there's the killing of the animal at the gate, then there's the gates of Jerusalem that you got to go through. All of them are gates that you pass in and through as part of the threshold covenant. But there's another part of the threshold covenant that needs all of this as a basis and a foundation, but to understand something much bigger, which our Jewish brethren don't yet, and our prayer is their eyes would be open, absolutely. But then our Christian brethren, who absolutely can see who Messiah is, love Messiah, want Messiah, don't see the connection between him and the Passover. And we're not supposed to forget it. Because if we forget it, listen to what he says. Be on guard, lest you forget Yahweh who brought you out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage, or the house of slavery. So how does Yah legally get them out of slavery? Through the blood of the Lamb, through a threshold covenant, by being invited in to become one with them. Then the death angel passes over and has nothing to do in that house. If you understand what I'm saying, say amen, everybody. All right. So that's the foundation. That's just the basic, that's the introduction, right? Let's get to some meat here now. Let's fast forward, because the story of the scripture is really just the same story, what? Told over, and each time it's told, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Yah is not linear, right? The story is not linear. The story is cyclical. So we've got the threshold, we've got the door of the house, we got the door of the tabernacle, the door of the temple, the walls, the gates of Jerusalem. They're all a threshold covenant. Here's John, number 10. John, chapter 8, verse 13. In the last verse we just read in Deuteronomy, don't forget this. Don't forget this, who took you out of the house of bondage. What did ancient Israel do? Even though they were doing the Passover year after year after year, the leadership forgot. They forgot. I know it sounds crazy, but listen to what it says. Chapter 8, Gospel of John, Yochanan, chapter 8 and verse 31. So Yeshua said to those, the Yehudim, who believed him, if you stay in my word, now there's the PDP, right? That should be in yellow. What number is this? Number 10. I didn't put it up there. This is number 10. It should be in yellow. So this is just me. I'm just adding this for context. If you stay in my word. Well, what was the instruction we got in Deuteronomy about his word? His word needs to enter into your heart. What's the symbol of that? A mezuzah at the doorpost of the entrance to your home. That's the symbolism. So if you stay in my word, you are truly my taught ones. And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. They answered him, we are the seed of Abraham. They're connecting themselves with the covenant made to Abraham, the blood covenant, the animals, the promise, the test, the meal. They're connecting themselves to that, but listen to what they say. We are the seed of Abraham, and we have and have been, and I put there in the yellow in the PDP, they're saying we haven't been in bondage. They say we haven't been servants, PDP, slaves. And it depends on what version you look at. Some of the versions actually say we haven't been in bondage or slaves. The Scriptures version says, and have been servants to no one at any time. Is that true? No. What did they forget? The very thing Yah said, don't forget. Don't forget Egypt. This is how I took you out from bondage. So this is real important. They want the connection to the promises. They want the connection to Abraham. We want the connection to Abraham. There's neither Jew, there's neither Greek, there's neither male, there's neither female. If we are in Messiah, then we are Abraham's seed, right? Heirs to the promise. We want the promise of Abraham. But what else do we want? We want the oneness, the invitation in, and his invitation for us to go to him so he can carry us over the threshold as a bride. That's what we want. You cannot forget Egypt and what happened there. It's connected to the Abrahamic covenant. It doesn't change the Abrahamic covenant. That's taken by faith. But this is the next step of it. The next step of it is a threshold covenant. And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. They answered and said, we're the seed of Abraham and have been servants to no one at any time. How do you say you shall become free? Yahushua answered them, truly, truly, I say to you. Now, every time he says truly, truly, we got to what? Pay attention. We got to pay attention. Truly, truly, I say to you, everyone doing sin, PDP version, the yellow, everyone in bondage to sin is a servant, a slave of sin. Understand the analogy. Back in Egypt, you were in servitude to Pharaoh. And in Pharaoh, there were no days off. It was 7 days work. It was work really hard. You were a servant to him. You were in bondage to him. That's the beginning of the story. That's the first level of it to get us to understand later on there's a bigger bondage that we're all still under. It's not Pharaoh, but it is bondage and it is slavery. That's what Messiah is referring to. But if you don't have the first story, which is why Yah says, remember this, remember this, remember this. Each year, do it over and over and over and over and over and over again. Tell your children from generation to generation to generation so that when the actual Passover lamb comes, you can recognize him. And start the bigger story, if you would. You shall become free, verse 34 again. Truly, truly, I say to you, everyone doing sin is a servant of sin, a slave. And the servant is, PDP, a servant is not part of the family. A servant is someone hired. A servant is someone who works for you. You may have a good relationship with a servant, but a servant is not family. And the servant does not stay in the house. Whose house is he referring to? Abba's house, Father's house, being invited in through a threshold covenant, just like they did invite him in the first Exodus or the first Passover. And the servant does not stay in the house forever, but a son. What is a son? Someone who is family stays forever. If then the Son, the Mashiach, makes you free, you shall be free indeed. So the question is, are we sons? This is the whole concept of the doctrine, the promises of adoption. Because we weren't sons. Daughters, children, I guess is another way of saying it, but in the generic, sons. We weren't sons of Abraham. We just weren't. Not all of us anyway. Maybe not physical descendants of, and even if you are a physical descendant of, it doesn't matter at this point, because your heart's got to be right. So, John chapter 14, listen to what the Master says. To sons, let not your heart be troubled. Believe in Elohim, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many staying places. And if not, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I shall come again. This is the PDP. I shall come again and carry you over the threshold like a what? This is all bridal language anyway, John chapter 14. We're going to go over the threshold. Not. The Passover was one type of it. The door at the tent was one type of it. The door at the temple was another type of it. The door of our hearts is another type of it. What's the ultimate manifestation of this thing? We enter his house. We enter his house. That's what the whole thing's been about from the beginning. But as human beings, we learn slowly. We learn little bit by little bit by little bit. But here we are at the end of the age. We ought to be able to start to put the whole story together and realize where we are. Let not your heart be troubled. And if not, I would have told you, I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I shall come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, you might be too, as one family in covenant. So he's made us sons and daughters. Most of us by adoption. Most of us grafted in. But sons and daughters nonetheless. Here's number 11 on your notes. John chapter 1, verse 29. So you need, the four elements you need for the threshold covenant is the lamb or goat, the wood, the threshold, the hyssop, and blood. John chapter 1, verse 29. On the next day, Yochanan saw Yeshua coming toward him, and he said, see the Lamb of Elohim, who takes away the sin of the world. John chapter 19 and verse 4. This is the arrest of the Messiah. On what? The preparation day of Passover. And about the 6th hour, he said to the Yehudim, see your king. But they shouted, away, away, impale him. Pilate said to them, shall I impale your king? The chief priest answered and said, we have no sovereign except Caesar. Oh, that's tough. And at that time, he delivered him to be impaled. And they took Yeshua and led him away, and bearing his stake. Put the PDP version there because the stake is actually wood. It's the wood. So you've got the lamb. Now you've got the wood. He's going to be impaled on a tree. And they took Yeshua away, and they led him away, and bearing his stake, he went out to the so-called place, the place of the skull, which in Hebrew is Golgotha. John chapter 19, verse 29. He's there on the cross. He's hanging on the cross. He's been beaten, whipped, and all sorts of other things. He's on the cross, and a bowl of sour wine stood there. And they filled the sponge with sour wine, put it in hyssop. The same stuff they took the blood and put over the doorpost with. And they held it to his mouth. Verse 34. But one of the soldiers, so after the hyssop, so we've got the lamb, we've got the wood, the lentil, we've got the basin. Now we've got the hyssop. What are we missing? The blood. Even though there's probably blood all over the place as he's hanging on the cross, still another part of the fulfillment. Verse 34, but one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and instantly blood and water came out. What was that? Passover. That was Passover. That was a threshold covenant. Why? Matthew chapter 27, verse 51. So this happens. Messiah gives up the ghost. The the soldiers are standing there, and a great earthquake starts. And see, the veil of the dwelling place was torn in two from top to bottom. And the earth was shaken and the rocks split. Verse 54. And when the captain and those with him who were guarding Yeshua saw the earthquake and all that took place, what did they see? Well, they saw the earthquake. I mean, they felt it, but sawing it mean they were there. They were there for the crucifixion. They saw the blood. They saw him give up. But what else did they just see? The veil of the temple get split. How? How could they see that? I know it sounds crazy. And when the captain of those who were guarding him saw the earthquake and all that took place, they feared exceedingly, saying, truly, this was the Son of Elohim. So we've got the blood, we've got the hyssop, we've got the wood or the lentils and the side post, and we've got the lamb. Where is he crucified? Outside of the gates of Jerusalem, on the Mount of Olives, facing the east gate, which when open, you can see right into the courtyard of the temple. And when the temple's backbone broke, because that's what actually happened, the supporting beams broke, the veil gets torn in two. And the guys across the valley heard it, could see the ruckus going on, saw all of these things. Point is, where was the lamb slain? At the gate. At the gate of the house to which we are to enter. Is he not the Passover? And you can see on the one picture, it gives you a map, and on the other picture, now today, if you're standing at that site on the Mount of Olives and you look across into the east gate, what you see is the Dome of the Rock is to the left, and then the Al-Aqsa Mosque is probably on the spot where the temple was likely stood, because it would have been a direct line of sight from the east gate, from the Mount of Olives, into it. So the Al-Aqsa Mosque stands there right now. We got the blood, we got the hyssop, we got the lamb, we've got the wood, and it happens at the gate. Tell me our Yah is not good. Tell me that's not incredible. I mean, if there were two of those out of however many, I'd be impressed. What is it, the song? Deyanu. Deyanu, during Passover. It would have been enough. It would have been enough if you just said he was the lamb. Deyanu. It would have been enough if you just said he was the lamb and there was hyssop. Deyanu. It would have been enough if it was the lamb and there was hyssop and then there was wood, the lentils. Deyanu. It would have been enough if it was lamb and it was lentils and it was hyssop and there was blood. Deyanu. That would have been enough. But it wasn't just the blood, it wasn't just the lamb, it wasn't just the hyssop, it wasn't just the lentils and the wood, it was at the gate to Yah's house. Passover. Why should we celebrate Passover? Because of this. This is what we were supposed to remember. Our generations before this to look forward to. All generations after it to look back to. This is the story. So, number 13 on your notes. The Passover, the crucifixion, the blood over the doorpost, the first threshold covenant, and I could put in there pictures of the tabernacle, but just not enough space. And the mezuzah. So think about this, guys. All those pictures are all pictures of the same thing. You understand what I'm saying when I say that? Obviously, they're not pictures of the same thing, right? But thinking spiritually, are those pictures of the same thing? Do they all remind us of the same thing? The doorway into the house through the threshold covenant? Yes. So think about our brethren of Judah. On every one of their doorways, What's hanging? The first picture. The first picture. But they don't see it. They can't see it yet. They will see it. Pray they see it. Many of them are seeing it. It's wonderful. People all over the world are seeing it. It's wonderful. But every time they walk into a house and they touch that mezuzah, they were supposed to be able to see the first picture. That's what we're looking back at. And every year when they retell the story of the Exodus with Moses out of Egypt and the Passover, what were they supposed to see? The first picture. Not as an escape from bondage of Egypt, but as an escape from bondage of sin, of the adoption as sons and daughters. Slaves no more. For a slave does not dwell in the house forever. I want to dwell in the house forever. Do you want to dwell in the house forever? Somebody say yes or amen, or poke the person next to you and say, wake up, this is great stuff. Thank you. I want to dwell forever in it. So the covenant made with Abraham sets the inheritance of who it's given to. The threshold covenant introduces the family, the groom and the bride together. The kingdom of Elohim is like a father who wanted a wedding feast for his son. That's the whole story. Passover. Passover. Verse 13, number 13. John chapter 1, verse 12. But as many as received him, the Mashiach, to them he gave authority to become the children, the adopted children, sons, daughters, the family, to make them echad with the Mashiach, as Mashiach is echad in covenant with Father, of Elohim to those believing in his name. Hebrews 2:10. It was fitting for him, the Mashiach, because of whom all are and through whom all are, in bringing many sons, not slaves, not servants, sons to glory. Ephesians 2 verse 12, and at that time, you Gentiles, you sojourners, you foreigners, you who are mixed amongst the northern house scattered all over the world. At that time, you were without Messiah, you were excluded from the citizenship of Israel, and you were strangers from the covenants with Abraham and the threshold covenant for the bride, having no expectation and without Elohim in the world. But now in Messiah Yeshua, you who once were far off, this is right out of the book of Hosea, you once who were far off have been brought near by the blood of the Lamb, Messiah. For he is our peace, who has made both what? Both the southern kingdom and the believers in it, and those of the northern kingdom mixed with the sojourners, he's made both of them one. One. And we'll see that at another Passover, on another day, for another message. Having broken down the partition of the barrier. So as far as you and I are concerned, should we be memorializing Passover? Yeah. Why would, if you love Messiah, why wouldn't you? He is the Passover. And of all the Moedim that there are, this is the only one that he says, if you happen to miss it, if you happen to be unclean, if you happen to have just had a death in your family, if you happen to have not been able to celebrate it on the 14th of the first month, this is so important that you remember this. You can celebrate it on the second month, on the 14th day. That's Yah letting us know, pay attention. Pay attention. No excuses. There it is. So where are we right now? Well, one day we will absolutely enter into that household. He told us, I go away to prepare a place for you. Revelation chapter 3 and verse 20, right out of the 7 letters to the 7 assemblies. Messiah says, now this should make a whole lot more sense to you. See, I stand at the door and knock. Why would he be standing at the door knocking? To be let in? Only if that house has what on it? The blood. What house is he referring to? Yes, your house needs a mezuzah. Yes, you come into my house. It is the house where Elohim is worshipped. Yes, you come into this building. It is the house where Elohim is worshipped. But the house he's talking about is this one. This one. This one needs the blood of Passover, the Passover lamb over it. And if it is, and he knocks on that door, he's allowed to because he's been invited to because of the threshold covenant to enter in. And to do what with us? Sup. To sup. To eat. To dine. This is my body. Eat of it. This is my blood. Drink of it. For my body is food indeed. My blood is drink indeed of the threshold covenant. All of this to get us to where? Last verse for today, beloved. Revelation chapter 22, verse 14. The ultimate end of this whole thing. The ultimate manifestation that starts all the way back there in the first Passover. Blessed are those doing his commandments, having the mezuzah, the word on their forehead and in their hands, and at the gate of their home, at the doorpost of their home, so everyone coming by, walking in, knows that this is a place where the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob dwells. On my heart, so that through my actions and the way I think, everybody knows this place, this house is a place where the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob dwells. Blessed are those doing his commandments, so that the authority is theirs unto the tree of life, and to enter through the gates into the city. What city? New Jerusalem. Into the place where Father is. That's the ultimate manifestation of this. We invite him in. He invites us in. We're all family. And Messiah's not going to eat of the Passover again with us until he eats it anew in the kingdom. In the kingdom. But outside, in Egypt, every home with the blood on it were keeping his commandments. They were going to be given access to the tree of life, obedience to the Torah, and they were entering. Messiah was entering into their gates, and they would then be allowed to enter into his gates. But everybody else in Egypt, or in Goshen that said, nah, I'm not going to do that. Nah, I'm not going to, that's silly. I'm not going to do the whole blood thing. Everybody who said that. But outside, like Egypt, are the dogs. And those who enchant with drugs, and those who whore, and the murderers, and the idolaters, and all who love and do falsehood. And what happened to Egypt in the first story? Nothing good. Judgment after judgment after judgment, until finally Pharaoh and his army are defeated and Moses sings his song. Guess what's coming? Everything's cyclical. There's another Passover coming that's going to start the story all over again. And the whole world's going to know who are the people of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And we're going to know who's outside too. And it's not going to be pretty. The story is cyclical, and we're living it. So when we come for Passover, this has to be our mindset. This is why we celebrate. Yes, for the Exodus, because it is the pattern upon which everything else is built. But because Messiah is the Lamb of Elohim who takes away the sin of the world, and he who the Son sets free, that is Yah's word for you for this morning. Passover, a threshold covenant. So now we got another piece of the story. We are children of Abraham through the eternal blood covenant, and we are the bride invited into the house to be one through the threshold covenant. What a wonderful story. What an absolutely wonderful story. And my prayer earnestly is that our Christian brethren get a chance to hear this and to see this, and our Jewish brethren get a chance to hear this and to see this. Messiah's sheep, they know his voice. They'll hear it, and they'll come. The joining of the two houses is coming. The inheritance given to Abraham is coming. And it's an eternal inheritance, which means it needs eternal people to inherit it. It's coming. And until it comes, we will celebrate year after year after year, asking that Yah would open our eyes to understand, our ears to hear, and to give us a heart that wants to obey, that wants to go through the minutia of getting into your cabinet and taking whatever leaven is in there out of the house. You say, oh, how does that really affect? It means something, because if you're not faithful in the, why would Yah give you? So start now. Don't go buy any baking powder now. Don't go buy yeast, that flour that's got you. Don't do it now. You just can throw it out. And don't think the day before you can just give it to your Gentile neighbor next door and then you can get it the day after, because that's just skirting the whole law thing. Not going to work. Just get rid of it. Just get rid of it. Buy it again the week after. And for that entire week, eat unleavened bread every day. Learn to take the leaven out of your heart, out of our lives. It's a process. It takes time. It takes time. We do not learn by intellectually understanding. We learn by doing. We learn through experience. The Greek mindset is to learn intellectually. The Hebraic mindset is to obey. Abba, we love you. We thank you for such a marvelous, marvelous story. We thank you for Messiah, the Lamb. We thank you for the hyssop. We thank you for the blood. We thank you for the lentils, for the wood. We thank you, Father, for the gate upon which, through his blood, we are all allowed to enter. Until that time, Abba, help us to keep your word in our hearts, to keep it on the forehead and on our hands, to put it at the gate, and to put it on the doorpost of our house, so that all who come by, all who see, all who hear us speak, they will know that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is in this place. To the eternal glory of Messiah, our King, we say amen and amen. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I hope that you enjoyed that message. Listen to it again. Don't forget to download the notes. We will see you guys on Monday morning. We will have a morning manna and Wednesday Bible study, Friday hidden manna, regular week. In the meantime, guys, enjoy the rest of your Sabbath. Everybody say it with me, Shabbat. Peace, everybody.